Today we're going to be talking about permits, meaning building permits. We're going to talk about what kind you need, how much they cost, and how long they generally take to get. Most preppers and DIY networks aren't really talking about these things, but they're incredibly important if you want to do a job safely and legally.
Did you call them preppers?
Did I say preppers?
Yeah.
If you haven't picked up on this already, flipping a house is a ton of paperwork. There's months and months and months and thousands of dollars that we have to spend before we can even pick up a hammer, which is our favorite part, such as life. For this project, we're essentially at this point in an empty shell. There's gonna be 6 different permits we need. We need a zoning permit, which is essentially the city giving us permission to add a roof deck, add a rear addition. We have our general building permit. We have our plumbing permit. We have a street work permit, so we can eventually hook a new sewer line up into the street. We have our electrical permit. We have our mechanical permit, which is our HVAC system, our ventilation, and anything else that's connected with the ducts. So we're a licensed general contractor. That means we can pull some, but not all of our permits. We can pull our zoning permit, although an architect or an expediter or even a homeowner can do that as well. We can pull our general building permit. We can pull our make safe permit. We can also weirdly pull our mechanical permit, which covers our HVAC and ventilation. Some of the other permits you need specialized trade licenses for. Our plumbing permit has to be done by a master plumber. Our electrical permit needs to be pulled by our electrician, and it needs to be inspected by a third party. And our street work permit needs to be pulled by a plumber as well. Other than that though, we can do a lot of this stuff. And ironically, it's not that difficult to get a contractor's license in Philadelphia. Again, more paperwork. There's no aptitude or skill test. A couple requirements that are pretty easy and straightforward to do. If you have any interest, drop us a comment as well. We'll post a video on how we became a licensed general contractor.
We knew we were going to be doing an addition and a roof deck, so we knew we were going to need a zoning permit. In order to get the zoning permit, we needed a lot line drawing and elevations. What that took was hiring an architect, which was roughly $1,000, and applying for the zoning permit, which in our case was $155. This allowed us to move forward with the project.
So we can apply for our zoning permit at the same time as our building permit. We often choose not to though. We don't want to spend the money on architectural or structural engineering work for something that we might not get permission to do. So when you're planning out your project, make sure to factor all this different lead times in. Generally, we'll give our architect 2 weeks to come up with lot line drawings and elevations after they take their initial measurements. Once that's done, we submit it to the city. They take about 3 weeks to review everything. If they need any revisions, modifications, it's another 2 weeks. So that's another 2-month process right there. Once we have our zoning permit in hand, it's time for us to apply for our general building permit. We're going for a standard review permit here. So we need our architectural series and our structural series. They're referred to as our A series and our S series. Our architect usually does our A series. Our structural engineer normally does our S series. In this case, our engineering firm is licensed to do both. They are design professional and reasonable charge, responsible charge, DPRC. They gave us a quote for $4,500 for our permit set, which is our A series and S series. That's bare bones. That is a very cheap price. That's what we pay just because we don't really need anyone to tell us what the elevation should be. We can field design what a cabinet's gonna look like. That's the bare minimum that the city will accept is a permit set. That has some interior elevations, some finishes, generally a floor layout. And it leaves a lot of flexibility and discretion up to the builder. When we're talking about building permits, it's really important to cover the 2 types that exist in Philadelphia. There are standard review permits, which is what we're doing here. They require architectural and structural work. There's also another much simpler type to get called EZ permits or easy permits. As the name implies, there's much less that goes into getting one of those. You don't need structural work, you don't need architectural work, which saves a ton of time preparing and a ton of time in the review process. They do come with limitations though. You can't change the structure, you can't demolish load-bearing walls, you can't add an addition, you can't add a roof deck, you can't change the use in any way. There are shells that exist in Philadelphia that you can buy, you can do some work to the existing structure, you can rehab it. You can go as far as putting a new roof on, you can replaster the entire inside of the house. But a lot of the projects we do, we end up creating value. So we have to add on to the house. We need to add an additional living space up top. That's what helps us take these shells that are overlooked by a lot of traditional investors. It's harder to find projects like that for us at our size, but they do exist. So if you happen to find one of those, consider easy permits. I'll post a link to the philadelphia.gov website where it gives the standards. And if you have any questions about how to apply for one, drop us a comment.
This whole process is filled with give and take between the engineers, the inspectors, and the architects. Everyone has their ideas of the way things should be done, and we as the builders ultimately have the most say. There are certain things that the engineers are going to want that we either see as not necessary or overdone, and there are certain things that they want done that we don't view as good enough. And so it's about open communication between everyone, all the parties, making sure you're doing things by the code, by the book, whatever you want to call it. But it's important to know that nothing that's written in paper is necessarily set in stone until it's stamped.
A lot of building is paperwork, dotting your I's, crossing your T's. From the time we consulted with our architect for the first time, it's about a 5-month process to get everything stamped, approved, and ready to put that first hammer to the nail. It's about $7,000. When you're buying a house, looking at a house, planning your flip, building your real estate empire, make sure you factor these things in.
We're people, just like you. We're not perfect. We make mistakes. You think anything we've said is wrong? All right, scratch that. You didn't scratch it.